Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the Neighborhood Conversations, where we chat about amazing things, diverse topics, amazing things that community individuals are doing. And today we have the amazing LaPierre from United Way. And Sue has been on the Neighborhood Conversations before, and so she is not new to us as a family. And so, Sue, how are you? How's it going in Nova Scotia? How's it going? Yeah,
I'm very well, thank you. It's good here. It's a mild day, a little rainy, but a mild December day for sure.
that's good. It's good to have a mild December and we're heading into the holidays. So happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. I know we're not going to be able to record. So this is going to be one of our very last podcasts for 2023, entering into 2024. And so hopefully at some point we'll be able to connect. But hey, it's always good to have impactful conversations. And Sue, I'm so honored to have you for our very last episode for this year. And so let's get right into it. United Way has been doing so much impactful work this year of 2023. And I want you to share a little bit of a light of some projects that United Way has undertaken to address the needs of community this year, and just highlighting where you guys might be going into 2024, if you could share some of that. So yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as you know from our previous conversations, and maybe your listeners have been familiar with United Way, we have a poverty focus at United Way Halifax, and so we're really focused on poverty, housing, and homelessness, and issues of inclusion. And so that really informs all of our work. And this particular last year has been one where much of our work, years of planning and strategizing, has actually blossomed into some opportunities in community. So as an example, this past year, we launched a public policy training institute, and it's really focused on sector leaders who understand the implications of policy and legislation when it is not serving the people that they serve best. And they often have information about how policy could be changed to better impact on the people that they're serving. And so this is a workshop style learning opportunity, low barrier, very easy access in terms of cost, and is open to community sector leaders from across the Atlantic Canada to come and learn, workshop a strategy when they've identified a policy that could be different and could serve community better, to help them strategize how they can co-create good policy with government. It's not rooted in being adversarial at all. It's really rooted in good co-creation, and with a real focus on marginalization, understanding that there's so many equity deserving groups who are disproportionately poorly served by some of our policies and legislation. So it's got a strong lens on that. So we were able to bring that into its launch in 2023 with our
Wow, that's
partners, the Delmore
amazing.
Buddy Day Learning Institute and Nova Scotia
Yes,
Community College. And
right.
so 20 plus graduates from across Atlantic Canada now are ready to tackle policy issues that are important to them and the people that they serve in their organizations, and do what government wants, which is to design policy that serves community well. And so it's really about being an ally to government. So that's one example. Of course, as you know, we had terrible wildfires this year across
Yeah.
our province. United Way has not had a lot of experience in addressing climate crisis. I think our first big step into it was during Hurricane Fiona, and now through the wildfires. And what we're finding is that because we know people who are experiencing poverty are disproportionately impacted by climate crisis, and
Right.
so many people are sitting on the precipice of poverty, and a climate crisis can push them over that
Yeah.
line, we
Yeah.
are being called into the space to help layer in additional supports for people who are marginalized or experiencing poverty. And so our donors, incredibly generous, our incredibly talented and hardworking fundraisers, really during the wildfires brought in so much energy and so many resources so that we could serve the community and layer on top what others were doing, like the Red Cross, to really target people experiencing poverty and make sure that we could fill gaps for them, and help prevent some people maybe from being pushed into poverty. So that was new work for us, very meaningful work. We learned a lot. We continue to work with community service providers. We learned so much for them and are forever grateful for the people who are on the ground that we can support so they can serve people directly. Couple of things, we're launching a community land trust. A community
Ooh.
land trust is a, and we're doing this with partners across HRM. No, certainly not solo. The United Way is kind of, holding the funding contract and holding the project management. But the idea of a community land trust is it creates affordable housing by holding land and assets in
Yeah.
in perpetuity for public good.
Yeah.
And so this is really exciting. We're finishing a funding project with funding from CMHC to be able to design a community land trust informed by community. And we've spent the last
Yeah.
couple of years engaging with community to design a community land trust that would best serve HRM well. And so we're just in the final stages of that and developing an implementation plan for 2024. So lots going on there. We're producing a poverty solutions report. You may remember in 2018, we launched our first poverty solutions report in communities. Excuse me, I misspoke. The poverty action report. Our
Yeah.
first report was a poverty solutions report. This is really a poverty action report. It's an up-to-date look at the situation of poverty in our community and what has happened that has been beneficial, but what still needs to happen to keep moving forward. Because as we know, things have gotten worse. There's a lot of influencing factors that are making conditions really difficult for people. Housing crisis, a cost of living crisis. But there's been some good work done too. So we need to look at that and then look at the data to see how we can keep doing better. So those are there's a few examples just off the top of my
Wow.
head.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm so happy that United Way is actually doing this work in connecting with community in so many ways and bringing it together, especially supporting the most vulnerable communities, and also the areas of homelessness has really affected this year, especially just being on the policies and the guidelines that's been in so much conversations. And United Way has been one of those organizations that has advocated for change and advocated for possibilities of shifting the status quo, I would call it. And so I commend this organization for doing it. And I see United Way in Toronto and seeing what they're doing. And so it's just that it speaks to the mission and the passion. I can see that you're passionate about the work, and that really admires the smile at where we're going. And the community land trust, I feel like that's an amazing initiative that brings better change and also bringing the role of community into that, and having their input into those areas so important. I have a follow-up question. Like how like I know we always talk about community and getting community input, and sometimes people define getting community input in so many definitions.
Yeah.
So, clarify with us, how are you connecting with these communities in order to get the feedback that United Way needs in order to do this work? Yeah, let's go into that. Yeah.
A lot of it was just through direct conversation, right? Going out into
Yeah.
communities, talking to residents, talking to other community land trusts. Community land trust is not unique to United Way Halifax. The one that we are trying to develop would be HRM wide, so it would have a larger scale and scope. There's many smaller, geographically focused community land trusts that need to that need to be part of this and want to be part of this, and we want them to be part of it, because it's not about competition, it's about cooperation, it's about collaboration.
Right.
And how
Right.
can the scale of a larger land trust help support the
Yes.
interests of a smaller, more community-focused land trust? And how can a community-focused land trust really help inform a
Mm.
larger,
Yes.
sort of effort, so that their interests are also included? So it's really about collaboration and cooperation, and many of the conversations have happened in person, in communities, in sort of community centers and
Yes.
churches, and with the participation of local partners to help bring the people that they're in relationship with into the conversation. So a lot of it's really happened in person, and we're taking that feedback very, very seriously. This needs to be a community land trust that serves community the way community wants to be served. And we have an advisory committee, a community-based advisory committee that is very committed to that. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions about how the
Oh,
consultation happened.
yeah. I love your two words, collaboration and cooperation. They bring together the togetherness of where we use. And I use the Delmore Buddy Days, always saying, Sylvia Paris, the CEO of Delmore, but she will always say Ubuntu, which means our success is your success, bringing that togetherness into that perspective. And so I feel good on that perspective. And I also add commitment, having that commitment to continue to move forward, and trust that United Way is doing amazing things when it comes down to bringing communities together and really putting their input in and being intentional into that perspective.
Well, and it's very true of United Way. We often say we just don't do anything alone. Like, there's not a
No.
single initiative that we're involved in that we're in it alone. It's always with partners, as you mentioned, Delmore Buddy Day for the Public Policy Training Institute, other partners, other community land trust for the larger HRM-wide community land trust. It's always in partnership, because we all have something to contribute. None of us can do
Yeah.
this alone. No
No.
single layer of government, no, department of government, not the business sector, not the nonprofit sector. None of us can do this alone. We have to work in
No.
concert together.
We
We have
have
to.
to, yeah, we have to definitely. Shifting into the wildfire that happened this past year, and that was so devastating to see certain homes be destroyed, and also certain spaces having to look for some certain organizations and certain people having to look for other areas of support. Talk about what United Way did in the role of supporting those individuals, and how were those funds, like how you talked about some of the funds that were collected, how those funds distributed, and also being able to connect in that way. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the successes of that. Yeah.
I look forward to my family's security in the future. That's the main goal as a father.
The empowerment from changing careers has really just made me want to get out of bed in the morning.
I'm looking forward to growing my business. So I want to hire people like I was hired. I want to give guys that chance.
Il me fera plaisir de continuer à travailler avec les immigrants francophones en Nouvelle-Écosse.
I am looking forward to the financial freedom that I never had before.
Sure. So as in all of our work, we really work with on-the-ground service providers. And so we worked with service providers in Hammonds Plains, Tantallon. And while we don't normally work in the Shelburne-Barrington area, we did get permission from United Way Canada, who oversees our jurisdictions, to stretch our reach into the Shelburne-Barrington area, because there is no United Way down there. So we met with local service providers, people in the community, and usually very small grassroots organizations. And again, sometimes churches, community associations, those sorts of things, who know their community well, who know the residents, who were on the ground. In every case, I think all of those service providers were also evacuated along with their fellow residents. And really had the shared experience of what that trauma was, whether they had been evacuated and then returned home to, all that entails, food rotten in fridges and just all of that unpleasantness, returning to a neighborhood to see your house okay, but your neighbor's gone. They were all in that together, and it was traumatic and upsetting. But the service providers working in both of those communities on the ground just rolled up their sleeves and said, I've got something to do to help. In some cases, it was, I've been blessed, my home is saved. In other cases, it was, I've lost my home and I have neighbors who've also lost their homes. I have to contribute for all of us. And so people who were fully impacted were really on the grounds doing this work. So United Way funded those organizations. We created an application process and system that saw money move into the community within days. And we supported, for the most part, basic needs, food in refrigerators and freezers that had spoiled for people who were able to return home, for people who had lost their home or had severe damages. It could have been gas, food, toys for their kids, clothes, basic needs, diapers, medication, replace CPAP machines, those sorts of things. It was just all of the basic needs. So that's where a lot of the money has gone, is to basic needs, that the service providers were able to work directly with the community members to make sure that they had what they need. We have reserved a portion of the money to help provide additional supports for folks who were uninsured. And as is sometimes the case, there's very good reasons why somebody might not have an insured home. Sometimes they're not insurable. That they can't get insurance on it for whatever reason. Other times they may be in between providers for, again, another reason. And so that's a huge impact on somebody to own a home and then have it gone with no insurance. So we've reserved some funds that we can work in collaboration with the Canadian Red Cross and other disaster responders to try to do our best to get those people to as fulsome a recovery as we possibly can over the next months.
That's really amazing and commendable to the work, and also to those that was faced. They were also assisting and helping and working together with you folks, which is phenomenal. And this is, we speak about community. Yeah.
It was humbling. I mean, in so many of the places we were seeing, staff members in some cases, but volunteers in other cases working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, just doing everything they could, being in libraries so people could pick up gift cards, driving gift cards to people, just everybody was just pulling out all the stops to support their neighbors. And United Way, honestly, and thanks to our donors who were quick to step forward and quick to say, we want to help and we want to support United Way to help those disproportionately impacted. Fortunately, we had the resources to do that and to be able to layer on some additional supports. And we were blessed and honored to be in that space.
Wow, that's really amazing. So that's really, really amazing. And it goes into my next question. Like, I know you spoke about this, but in your opinion, what does community involvement play in the success of United Way's mission? And we talked about this, but just focusing on just giving organizations the inspiration of how they should also continue to center community, because that's how sometimes organizations tend to go into the wrong direction when they don't center community and following their ways of doing things instead of getting the input of community. So let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
Well, honestly, the community input is absolutely everything. And, it doesn't matter for us whether it's in standing up a crisis response like it was for the wildfires and being able to, to listen to the community and hear what they needed. Every application said "and other," because if we missed something in the list of things you were eligible for, we needed to know what that was. And that was one gateway. Somebody could write in something that we would then know that they needed that we wouldn't otherwise. So from that sort of really practical level through to, meetings in the communities. We met with the Residents Association in Hammonds Plains Tantallons in the days after people had returned to their homes, because they wanted to understand what United Way was doing, how we were going to fund, who we were going to fund. They wanted to give us input about what they thought we should be doing, they thought we should be doing it with. So we went and we sat down with them and we talked to them. And we're grateful to do so because they were so informative. but our whole organization, whether it's in response to something like the wildfires or whether it's our strategy, our focus on poverty, housing, and homelessness and inclusion, that all comes from community. That's all because we asked the community what we should be focused on, and that's what we were told. And our board is again community members who are accountable and provide the oversight and governance. We work with voices of lived experience in all of the work that we do to listen to the voice of lived experience of poverty and marginalization, so that we can do it better. In making funding decisions, we draw on volunteers from community and try to make sure that those volunteers are representative of the communities that are going to be benefiting from the funding, to make sure that they have voice in it. So really, that community input is absolutely a central pillar to who we are.
Wow, that's so amazing, Sue. Thank you so much for giving light to also adding the live experience, because some people do not know how to bring those live experience community individuals into perspective, and I feel like that's really commendable to the work that United Way is doing and stuff like that. So yeah.
I would like to add, we don't get it right all the time. But what I would say at United Way is that we're very self-reflective. We will definitely, when we wanted to start looking with people with lived experience, it took us it took us learning. But we are a learning organization, and we do listen. So we certainly don't get it right every time, but we do want to listen to community and respond to their really valuable guidance. And that includes working with people with lived experience. And we've adapted and changed, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. As you can tell, I'm a proud United Way staff member.
Of course you
but
are.
I'm proud of the organization because it's a group of probably about 25 people as staff members, and then all of our governance and board and committees of shared values. And so it's working at a place who has the shared values of community first, equity first, respect first, is really important.
Yeah, and speaking about not always getting it right, I goes into my next question on some of the challenges. What are some of the challenges has United Way encountered in its mission, and how has the organization adapt to overcoming them? And I know that you talk about learning, reflecting, and building on, which is really nice. So deeply go into that conversation with that. So yeah.
Oh, the challenges. The issues are so big. The impact of a pandemic, the impact of isolation on people from the pandemic, the financial impact of the pandemic. I mean, has just that with really decades of policy decisions that have left us in the housing crisis we're at now. I mean, the challenges that we all face are the challenges United Way faces. That the issues are big, and they stem from, decisions made long ago and then reinforced. And then, I think those are our biggest challenges. Really, I have not met somebody yet working at United Way who doesn't want better for community. Whether you're a donor, whether you're working at an agency that we fund, whether you're part of an association, whether you're a citizen on the street that's encountering the homeless encampments, whether you're a government official or a politician at the municipal, provincial, or federal level, everybody wants better. Yeah. It's complicated. It's complex. Changing policies takes time. Understanding the implications of policy decisions made decades ago takes time and bravery to change those. Yeah. We're in a situation where our housing is seen as a commodity instead of a human right. That's a massive challenge. Yeah. That's a massive challenge that requires, it requires, honestly, I think that's part of why we've stood up the CLT. I don't think we're going to undo the market system that we've created. I don't think we're getting rid of that. But I do think that we can create a parallel system to it. And that's something like a community land trust can contribute to. So I try to think about how do we create systems that run alongside existing systems. And the best example I have to that is something like our transit system. So we have really two models. We have a model of self-owned automobiles where people drive, and many people rely on cars as their form of transportation. But we also have a parallel system, a public transit system, and bike lanes, and an active transportation system that are a parallel system to cars, and they coexist. We don't think about should we have public system or cars. We think about how do we create those things to complement each other. And so you may have the privilege and opportunity of driving a car to get where you're going. But if you don't drive, can't drive, don't want to drive, are too young, have a disability, can't afford it, the public transit system provides you with a different opportunity that sits alongside the other system. And I think we need to create those same systems when it comes to things like housing and food security and those sorts of things. And a community land trust is like that. So I don't think we're going to undo what we've done, but I think we can think differently about how do we create something that coexists.
Yeah, moving forward. Yeah, as we continue to move forward. And it's always forward thinking, not trying to go back, but forward thinking for sure. Sue, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like I wish we can have more of this type of conversation that speaks value and speaks where we want to go. Yeah.
Well, I will say, as I'm talking about this last piece of, systems change, or parallel systems. This is not Sue original thinking. This is really down to a colleague that I have named by the name of Kevin Hooper, which is our housing advisor, our senior housing advisor. And I hope your podcast comes back. And I would encourage, if it comes back, to reach out to Kevin, because Kevin is just a tremendous resource of information about things like community land trust and systems change. And he's a planner by background. So if your podcast comes back, I would encourage you to reach out to him as well.
Oh, definitely, for sure. It'll be really a pleasure to do that. Sue, it's been good. It's been really good to have you on here and to bring this conversation into perspective. Leave us with a little bit of a hope as we go into this holiday and into the new year, with a perspective of innovation for change, because we talk about innovating and impacting so much, and so much different levels of impact, as we continue to move forward. What do you got for us as we vision and visualize impact into 2024? What should we be thinking? What should we be challenging the government, nonprofits, and the status quo as we continue to move forward? Yeah, I said a lot, but I feel like this is like a moving statement that's going to help people think as they continue to build. Yeah.
I think for me, it's be kind and expect and call for others to be kind. And that when governments are thinking about the best interest of their community with kindness and a human rights lens, then they will make choices that are different.
Yeah. Kindness is so important. I feel like sometimes that's not being brought into the perspective of change. And I feel like that's what's going to leave us to want to do more, and also be more empathetic towards each other. Yeah.
It's a simple word for a complexity of behaviors.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Wow. So, as always, this is always a good conversation. It's always good to have a chat with you. Thank you for coming on to our conversation today.
Thanks, Templeton, and I really do hope your podcast comes back. It's been a joy being here, having these conversations with you, listening to your podcast. So I do truly hope this is not the last one.
Yes. And folks, this is going to be the very last episode of the Neighborhood Conversations until we build another venture of bringing these conversations back. And so we'll definitely see you somewhere in 2024, and be able to connect. But stay tuned to our socials on Teamwork Cooperative's page or their website. on where this podcast is going next. Until then, have a great holiday and Happy New Year. See you soon. This podcast is funded by the Government of Nova Scotia.